is the NTT INDYCAR Series. With live coverage of today's final warm-up, this is the INDYCAR Radio Network.
Final tune-up before we go racing tomorrow. The Bommarito Automotive Group 500. Mark Janes, Davey Hamilton, Michael Young, set to take you through the next 90 minutes or so, and a couple of groups going out first, and a couple of sessions, short sessions we should say, with an opportunity to hopefully work in a highlight, Davey Hamilton, to give us another groove or two for the race tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. We see one of the Aero McLaren cars, and most of them, they're working it right now, coming off turns 3 and 4, running that high line. We've seen this in the past, Mark. We've seen cars go up there, they run it, but it really doesn't, they're not at full speed. It really doesn't rubber in that good. Now, they got to continue to try. I'm not criticize them for that at all, but it just really hasn't worked yet. And what happens is that second line gets a little bit of rubber in there, but when that green falls, everybody goes right to the bottom. The marbles go in that second lane, and it doesn't really, benefit anybody. So they got to, work with the company to get stick up there, to make it sticky, to make the track. There's plenty of plot products out there that do that I think they could look into, and Firestone would be good to work with on that, to really get that outside line to where it's the priority line, to where it's a little faster up there even, and then leave that bottom open, so because marbles won't create down there and will be a better racing. So we're giving it a shot here. We'll see what happens, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Well, how about Scott McLaughlin going back-to-back for poles here at this race? And, of course, his excitement last year tempered a bit by the fact that he had a 9-position grid penalty a year ago for an unapproved engine change, and that resulted in a 5th-place finish. But, boy, he laid down a couple of fast laps here today.
Laid some really good laps down today, gets to start on the pole. I think it's definitely an advantage now. One thing when it comes to the IndyCar Series, there is strategy. We've seen Scott Dixon start 16th. He's going to start worse than that this year because of an engine change penalty, 9-position grid penalty as well. But they played the strategy just right. The track got really slick. Nobody was passing. What they decided to do, just save fuel the entire race and cut a complete pit stop out of it. And they just didn't have enough speed to catch up to him. And I know that if it would have went much longer, he would either run out of fuel or they would have caught him. So he caught it very close. But in the day, strategy is what won Scott Dixon the race.
While Scott McLaughlin benefited from qualifying and had an enjoyable qualifying session, the news not so good for the entirety of the Dale Coyne Racing stable. With more on that and the specifics on the conditions to start off our show for the evening, we'll head down to pit road. Welcome in Michael Young.
Well, good afternoon and good evening to you, Mark James. Looking forward to a great final practice session here as we touch upon all the things that we will be doing in this final practice session. First group out right now, and for Dale Coyne, Catherine Legg never made it through tech. They failed tech and didn't have time to get the issue that they had fixed in time to get them back through. They feel they have that car repaired. Talked to Jack Harvey. They had hybrid issues. The hybrid was overcharging, so when he made it out of pit lane, the car cut off. They weren't able to get back out and qualify that car. They feel they have those issues taken care of as well as far as conditions go. It's only dropped a couple of degrees. It got up to about 94, 95. We're at 93 right now as the sun begins to set in the west right behind the grandstands, but track temperature has only dropped about 10 degrees. As a matter of fact, it's at 111 degrees right now, which is where we were at the morning practice session for this NTT IndyCar Series. So track conditions will certainly change as the evening progresses and gets to be more like we will have as far as race conditions tomorrow night.
I'm curious, Michael. I know once upon a time there were monitors down there that could tell you exactly where the temperatures varied from place to place on the racetrack, and I don't know if you could track anything like that down, because I'm curious to see what the disparity is between the front stretch now that is completely covered by shade because of this massive grandstand and the sunshine that's still splashed along the back straightaway. Davey, I would imagine that there is a little bit of a temperature difference between those two portions of the track.
No question about it. That cooler track is better for grip right now. That sun is not beating down on it. Got a little shade. The track's cooled down. There, the temperatures dropped as well, so that's good as well. It gets a little more downforce. That will help these cars try to get a little bit of an outside line here. They are doing a really good job. They actually went out and marked the track. Pretty smart idea, where they put some lines around the track for the drivers to have a reference point to stay above that high line. So right now we're looking at the number 7 car. That's Alexander Rossi being pulled in because he won't run the outside line. He's staying on the bottom and not doing what the intentions are.
Michael Young has the specifics we were requesting on the varying temperatures around this mile-and-a-quarter track.
Yeah, it's very interesting. As I walked by before this session started, it was 111 degrees for the track temperature. It's already dropped 3 degrees as the sun now peaks behind the grandstands. We call it happy hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as that front straightaway is completely under shade. The disparity, front straightaway 106 degrees and the back straightaway 112. So a 6-degree difference between the front and the back. The corners all 107 degrees, turn 1, 2, and 3 and 4.
Yeah, and we'll see that probably continue to drop on the front straightaway as this session progresses. Here's who's out there now. Felix Rosenquist, Marcus Ericsson, Joseph Newgarden, Will Power, David Malukas, Connor Daly, Roman Grosjean, Renus VK, Linus Lundqvist, Alexander Rossi, Stingray Robb, and Catherine Legg. And Alexander Rossi being parked, a clear indication the series is serious about what those drivers to use this for highline practice, Davey.
Well, no question about it. They say it's high line. There's a painted line out there, and obviously they're pretty darn serious about it. You either stay above it or you don't run. And so I don't know that's really going to hurt him at all. I mean, they're parking him for this, but it's really keeping him out there, trying to do everybody a favor, putting rubber down. So he's just saving his car. If they allow him to go out in the next practice, it really doesn't hinder him any.
Well, we'll tell you about the difference in how they have to tiptoe around through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Davey, the pole speed 179.972, and the slowest speed, we're not going to count the one that Colton Herta because of the issue he had, but Stingray Robb at 172.782, and right now the fastest lap is at 169.309 miles per hour.
Yeah, so that tells you, I mean, they're definitely off pace. They're being very cautious. They'll gain speed, Mark, as they get a little confidence in that outside groove and just try to get it rubbered in a little better, a little more each time they go in. We see one of the Arrow McLaren cars right now, hard to tell them apart. That's Pato up on that high line as Will Power comes out of the pit area right now, passes him, but majority of these cars are drivers doing what they're supposed to. They stay above that white line. You know what? It just makes for better racing. Even if they don't want to be up there right now, it makes it for better racing. They're trying to get rubber down there. It's going to make it a better event for everybody tomorrow.
A lot of drivers that we heard from in qualifying under the impression that this session they have throughout the course of this evening once they turn them all loose. Michael Young, they're saying this could be one of the most important sessions of the season for them because many are still scratching their heads trying to find the right balance for the race car.
100%, and this session's more of a throwaway session because they are running that high line, trying to get that second groove run in, and I just spoke with a representative from Firestone, and they are running a very specific tire for this session, for highline practice only, so that potentially could be why we're not seeing those speeds that we saw earlier in the day. They're trying to get this rubber-specific tire in that higher line to lay down more rubber so these drivers can potentially put more down and run it later on in this practice session.
I don't know that it's necessarily a full groove yet, Davey, although we look at the camera and by the time they get into turn number 2, I would call that indeed another groove higher on the racetrack based upon where they run during qualifying.
The key is right in the middle, entry in the middle. That's where you want to get it to move up because on the exit it moves up anyways and you're unwinding the wheel at that point. So, you know, I don't know if we're going to be able to see it visually if there's enough rubber to be laid down in this short amount of time above that to where we really see it because the bottom is so dark. So many laps have been turned on that bottom line right now and they got to continue to work that outside groove, and I'm sure Firestone's a softer tire to where it's going to wear quicker to try to lay rubber down that outside line. And like I say, Firestone knows they've seen sticky tracks. Matter of fact, if you look at drag racing, they put chemical down on those racetracks to get rubber down and really make it sticky. They actually have a machine that goes over there and tells you how much stick it has. I think that process needs to come to us, especially on not just to ovals. There's some street and road courses that could use that same thing on some tight areas where there's no passing that you can improve some of the racing on street and roads as well.
Some of the shots that we've been given on our multi-screen monitor give you a pretty good idea of exactly where that racing groove is between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And as we get the front view of that, for instance, the camera in turn 2, when it's shooting back toward turn 1 and picking up that car coming off of that turn, it's pretty obvious, Davey, that they have the entire right sides out of that racing groove.
That's right. They're definitely out of it, and that's that's what they want to do. Just try to continue to get that down. We'll see. Well, when when it's all over, we'll take a visual look and see if it's darker.
Michael Young.
Yeah, Michael Shank's driver, Felix Rosenquist, currently P1. And Michael, this has been such an interesting 2024. You started with Tom Blomqvist, was able to pick up David Malukas past the midway point of the season, and now David is moving on to A.J. Foyt. I just wanted to kind of give an idea for the fans listening at home and here at the track where you as a team owner stand with that. Were you and David in contact with each other? How does a process like this play out?
I mean, listen, first of all, we're super happy with the whole team this year. We went from no Fast Sixes to 13 Fast Sixes this year, so it's been a big good year for us. David and I we're all good. A lot of people wondered how did that happen, and they made a move because they felt they needed to, and I'm cool with that. They've come and helped us a lot. We've grown with them. Always forever friends with them, no matter what happens from here on out. So everything's good. We just have a different path right now. So we're going to take our path. He takes his path. And before now and the end of the year, though, we're going to win a race. And that's what we want to do with them.
And to your point, this team has turned the wick up, certainly in these last couple of races. Where does this stand for you now in 2025? Have you started talks with a replacement in the 66?
We think we have a pretty sporty race car for next year for the 66. So we're talking and looking at lots of different people and things. And I look forward to seeing who's out there and who wants to go drive a car at a high rate of speed.
Lastly, charter system coming in, potentially everybody getting 3 cars. Is that a potential for you to go to 3, or are you content with 2?
Well, but we could go to 3 someday, but this charter thing has really put a wake in the water, which it's a good wake, right? So we got to figure out where we lie in all that. And if we end up buying a charter or something down the line, we have room. We're allowed to have 3. So if we can do 3, maybe we will in the future. But we got the new Actor IMSA program coming online, and we're focused on what we got, and we're super happy to have it all.
I'll let you get back to it. Thank you for the time. That's Michael Shank, guys.
And I would tell you that more released on that charter program by our friends at Racer Magazine, Marshall Pruitt, and the rest of the outstanding staff there. And, for those of you that follow them on social media and to pay particular attention to Racer Magazine, as you should, they provide tremendous coverage and insight that they, the recent information that they have published will tell you exactly where things stand. And Davey, from what we understand, there's a number of teams that have at least, a 40-page document now that explains the charter system. And I think the series doing the right thing by asking for feedback from those teams.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I'm still trying to learn as well. I do know that they would like to see each team have 3 cars. Something like Formula One is 2 cars per team. They got 20 cars. Obviously, we're going to have more than that here. If all the teams add a 3rd car, they all have the charter system. There's goods and bads with that, right? It kind of locks in that ownership system where nobody else can really come in and really compete, and there's a set amount of cars. Don't know that that's, I always like, free enterprise, where if you had the budget to come and race IndyCars, that everything would be available, from engines to cars to tires, and just adds another car, somewhat like NASCAR. You could, you can run. If I could go get a NASCAR team today. But so I like that open energy and open opportunity, but I do understand the business of this sport as well. We want to make sure that we have full fields everywhere we go. We want to make sure that the sponsors are happy, that they contend in every race. So there's a lot of things I definitely understand. So kind of a split opportunity there, and you don't know which way is the right way. So, you like it being open, but on the other side, you got to take the business of it and make sure that we provide the best possible IndyCar racing for our fans, for all the people that support it, and the charter system seems like that's what's going to produce.
We were in the high 160s a few moments ago, and now that we're toward the end of this first group, about a minute to go, Davey, the speeds have started to go up a little bit. More grip is appearing on the high line through 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Level of confidence going up because those top speeds now are in the 169 to 170 range.
Yeah, definitely quicker. How about Stingray Rob running that 168 range, P4 right now, and I've been watching him. He's running in that second group. He's not down on the bottom trying to cut a lap. He's up there. He's up there above that white line. Seems his car's happy, really good up there. Obviously, he's starting not shotgun on the field, but he's towards the back of it, so he has a lot of work to do. But right now, that's a big advantage, that second line for him, and we'll see if he can be like Ferrucci, his teammate, and they work that outside in.
Is it accurate to say that regardless of how well this does or doesn't work, that we're still going to have a handful of drivers that say, you know what, the car feels good, I'm going to give it a shot on race day?
Well, we're talking Ferrucci. He's going up there. I mean, you just know he's going to, and I would love to see other drivers go up there and give it a shot.
I've seen Polo do it.
Yeah, no, there's other guys, right? Yeah. And And the more that do it, the more it's going to keep that clean up there, the more rubber it's going to lay down. The problem is dirty air. Is this dirty air going to affect them so where it doesn't really become an advantage if they just run around the bottom and be safe? So it's all yet to be seen, but the good news is you can assure this, that everybody is working diligently on the downforce of the cars, on what tires we have, on how the series is trying to make that second group better. Michael Young.
And back to our conversation with Graham Rahal, he felt that at least half the field needed to run that second groove throughout the race to keep it racy, because if everybody goes to the bottom, he said, I'd be more than happy to go up there and run it. I feel that'd be the better line throughout the race. But he said, I can't do it by myself. We need at least half the field. So it has to be a commitment from, you look at 10, 15 cars to be able to actually get this done and keep that higher groove with the marbles and everything building up actually open throughout the race tomorrow night.
Now, conventional wisdom tells you, Davey, that 3 and 4 should be the place where that extra groove could come in initially, but I think it would be more important for these drivers, and I think they'd feel better if that actually happened in 1 and 2.
Yeah, because what happens down in 3 and 4 so darn fast on that bottom, it's really hard to talk yourself. I mean, when you're wide open around the bottom, hard to talk yourself into going on the second group around wide open, right? So you're right, turn 1 and 2 is where they really need to take advantage of it to be able to really fly in there on that outside, have confidence it's going to hold. And that's like, as we look at the racing in today's world and what works and what doesn't work on tracks, you always wish, I wish I had unlimited supply of money and go build a multi-banked racetrack where it's flatter on the bottom and it progressively gets banked as it goes up, because their short tracks have done that and it's outstanding. I mean, we run 4 wide and y'all come out equal at the end, and Texas used to be like that. If you recall, man, we used to run 2-3 wide at Texas all day long. I'm not saying it was the most fun, but it was a hell of a show for the fans.
I know it was a lot of fun to call. I'll tell you that. I mean,
a lot of fun to call.
A lot of those mile and a halfs of those days, Chicagoland and Kansas and Kentucky and Texas. Gosh, I was exhausted. I can imagine how you guys felt, because I was exhausted.
Yeah,
when
no,
it was over.
It was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I remember one race there, one of the first times we ran that, and I can't recall who won, but I know I ran second. Al Jr. ran third, and after the race over, I seen Al. We're going to the media center, and I go, what was that?
Was that the year Jeff Ward won?
Yeah, Jeff Ward. I think that is right. I think Jeff did win. And I'm going, what was that? Like, what the heck was that all about? I mean, that was insane. He goes, that was a blast. When I go, not really. You know what I mean? It was very high stress the whole race, because you're looking literally, you were so close to the back of the car in front of us that all you would get is buffeting and that tailpipe. You can just see the tailpipes, and you'd not lift. You'd go in literally like a foot behind them, and then one lap you're leading, the next lap you're in 10th, the next lap you're in 5th. I mean, it was crazy, and I know that in the day I look back and I go, man, I can't believe we did that. But it was somewhat fun, but it was high stress. And for the fans and you guys calling it, I mean, what a better way to race.
Well, and what people have, what I've said to folks that have asked me about those days and what it was like, and boy, don't you wish we could go back to that. I think the thing that we have to remember is the fact that the reason that you guys and gals were able to do that week in and week out in that period of time, it's because it was an all-oval series, and you raced that way every week, and that's just tougher to do given the variety of tracks that we race on.
No, you're right. In the car, right? You have to make sure the car was different. We set our cars up for oval only. We didn't need to worry about going to any street and road courses, and that's exactly nail on the head. You had a really, really good point that those cars were designed by Dallara G-Force, Riley Scott, the people building them back in the day, and they said, hey, these are oval cars. We're going to build them for ovals and to build them to be able to pass, because that's what you have to do. And now we have to be good everywhere, which I think it's going to get there. I mean, I think our package is really good. And one thing about the cars, coming from being injured in one, is I really think they're super safe right now. I really like the safety of them. I think
guys like Stingray Robb and Santino Ferrucci will tell you that.
How about that? I mean, just not even sore when they get out of the car.
Yeah.
We've seen some gigantic hits at Indy, and they just Dallar's done a fantastic job for driver safety. Love that side of it. And I think there's some things, like to everybody have input on a conversation to try to make these second and third groups a little bit better for not only the racer, but everybody, the fan, us calling it, the racer itself, to where you can have confidence going up in that second group, knowing that it's going to stick and not be at such a big risk. So, these guys, I think we only have, is it the second group out there right now?
Second group is out there. They've been released. They're 5 minutes into their session.
So we have a chance to see some of the, like Will Power in the first group's out of his car. Everybody was in that first group. They're out. We could ask them what they think about it and if they think it's going to be an advantage or not.
So Felix Rosenqvist dialed it around to the tune of 170 miles an hour. And I was watching your pole sitter, Scott McLaughlin, and Davey, for about 3 laps, he ran that high line, and he was tucked right into the tire tracks of Kiffin Simpson. And then, he eventually worked his way inside of him a little bit off of turn number 4. But those laps he was running behind Kiffin Simpson, it's not just about dirty air at that point. It's seeing how that dirty air affects your ability to run in that high group.
Yeah, and it's confidence going up that second group. For example, he's the fastest in his Group 2 right now at 163. Well, Rosenqvist is fast at Group 1, 170. So we'll continue seeing these speeds go up as these drivers go, it is not bad up there. We can get some speed and try to find the limits. And I'm pretty impressed with Firestone being ahead of the game, bringing an additional tire here to knowing that they're going to do this and knowing that they're going to use a softer tire. More than likely, I'm just going to say it's softer tire that wears quicker to get that rubber laid down on this racetrack.
Michael Young.
Yeah, and to that point, Davey, I talked to Kara Kristalik after my initial report, and there's more camber on these tires as well, so they can get up there and get after it a little bit more and feel a little bit safer running that higher groove in this session.
Pietro Fittipaldi joining Alexander Rossi as drivers who have been told to pull the car onto pit lane for not running that high line. And again, we continue to watch Scott McLaughlin. It's interesting, Davey, when they enter turn number 1 and they get to the high side of the racetrack, they're now running entirely out of that groove through 1 and into 2. And before you know it, you get right back in that traditional racing line as you exit turn number 2. So what will the difference in the car be like when they go from that high side through 2 where there's not as much of a racing groove to jumping right back into the groove? Do they notice an increase in grip right away?
The good news is, Mark, there you are unwinding the wheel at that point, because it could be tricky if you have a little additional wheel put in because there's not as much grip on top, then all of a sudden you hit where that rubber is and there's a lot of grip. It could get the back of the car a little bit free, so you got to be careful with that for sure. But most generally in that exit, it's pretty far down the racetrack and your wheel is pretty straight. Just another note, we're on board right now with Colton Herta. They got that car fixed. He's going to be starting shotgun on this field. No, not shotgun. I think the Cashman Legg and Jack Harvey are in the back, and then Colton and Stingray Robert back there.
25th.
But at least they got that car fixed. That Andretti team, they're believing. They got all the parts, pieces. They had all the help. He's going to go in there with a lot of confidence too, knowing they put that car back together properly, and it's showing that replay of him in qualifying. And I can't say enough. If you can see it, he has the back tires spinning. They're smoking. They're trying to get the energy away from that wall. Smart thing to do. A lot of times drivers just lock it up and actually don't slow down very much before they hit the wall. So good job by him. And Herta, right now, so the problem with Herta too, right? He has a new car. He wants to know what that bottom line's going to be like, and he just got black flag for not running in that second group. Now one thing I got to remember, it's not hurting these guys that much because more likely they're not going to be in that second group anyways. They're just going to save time, come in, and it really hurts the overall reasoning their cars are out there. So they'll come out in this final warm-up run where they want to run.
And we should mention that for those of you that aren't aware of it, there'll be about a 15-minute break, and then they'll go out and get another practice session.
Yeah, and so if they're not getting penalized in that practice session, getting penalized this one doesn't hurt you at all, because that's not really, you're going to go out there and really get in the proper line and get after it and see what the car really has to do. Now, Palou just goes to P1. He's a second group, no surprise, at a 170.37, barely beating out Rosenqvist. But you watch him go around there, he's pretty much continuously staying in that upper line unless he's trying to pass somebody, and we see him going down through 3 and 4 completely above that dotted white line all the way through that corner. Looks like a good lap coming down this front straightaway as well. Good lap with Colton Herta. We'll watch him, and yeah, he was just definitely kind of running. He was up a little bit higher, not in the perfect race line, but up to not high enough.
Michael Young.
Well, David Malukas hopped out of the car. So what were your thoughts? Obviously, you were running that high line with those tires. Do you feel like if half the drivers of the field commits to it, this could be something we could see as working tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was very good. We actually kept going quicker and quicker, and by the end, it was actually our fastest lap. So, I mean, the deck was definitely there, but that high line, even through 3 and 4, was very steady, and it felt very safe, and honestly increased my confidence for the race tomorrow. So, I really think that doing this high line session, it will have a big effect for tomorrow.
Would it be something that you need to have race director Kyle Novak say, guys, we need to use this, or is this something you as drivers in the field talk about saying, guys, let's try to do this and put on a good show for the fans?
Yeah, I mean, the Highline practice definitely is going to help, but I think for the race, it will be a bit of a kind of commitment from the drivers to say, hey, let's keep using that second lane to make sure that the rubber doesn't build up there. Because from the start, I think everybody will. I think it's just going to depend on how many people are going to start slotting back in. But my hopes are high. I think we can actually have a second lane here.
Turns 3 and 4, we assume, are pretty good. What about turns 1 and 2?
1 and 2, again, high line or no high line, you're always struggling with a bit of understeer on the exit there. And even on that high line, just because the banking is a bit different, it actually helped a little bit. So, honestly, I'm very excited going into this race here. I really do believe that second lane will work. I mean, fingers crossed. I really do hope it works. And, honestly, that high line run there, if we had to do a whole race in the high line, our car's right.
All right, we wish you all the best the rest of the session.
All right, thank you.
That's David Malukas, guys.
Just a couple of cars into the 170 range, and we already told you what the speed was for McLaughlin on pole to give you a bit of a difference and, a bit of an idea of what the difference is. And, I mean, as this session continues to progress, Davey, it's clear that at least the attempt is being made to run out of the racing groove between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah, no question about it. And we watched, let's go down to the speed chart. Ed Carpenter at the bottom of it. He is running that second groove, but he knows, hey, I'm not going to take any risk up there. I'm not going to try to get speed. I'm just trying to lay rubber down. He goes above there every lap. He stays up there. He's working on it, not trying to find that top speed just because he didn't want to make a mistake. And then Fittipaldi with no experience. Catherine Legge actually 24th right now. Kind of the same thing. Got to remember not a lot of time here. Well, no time here. This is her first run, and the car didn't get a qualify, didn't get a lot of practice laps. So right now she's going to stay out there, stay above there, try to get as many laps as she can.
The comment that we had post-qualifying, I think, is just staggering to me. And again, he was in a part-time role last year with Ganassi Racing, and I think just because of the maturity level with which he carries himself and the success that he's had, throughout the course of this year, hard to believe that a guy like Marcus Armstrong said when he completed qualifying, he had turned his 17th lap here. That's all. Yeah, no, that's all he's ever turned.
That's right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, in this track of all of them, I promise you, Mark, you need laps. You need laps to get your car right. You need laps to get confidence. A guy that, for example, I feel sorry for Catherine who else is back there? Actually, even Colton, he's got some laps now, but Catherine especially, with no laps, basically no laps right here, having to start back this field, and it's going to be a tough day for her. I know, doesn't matter what kind of car you have, when you don't get a practice, you got to just go lay it down out there, and you don't get many practice laps. It's tough.
Michael Young, a pretty good qualifying session for the Juncos Hollinger team. Roman Grosjean rolls off 8th, and his latest teammate, Connor Daly, will start in the 12th position.
Yeah, Connor, have you ever went back and counted the number of fire suits that you have? Do you have like a closet saved just in case?
Yeah, it's an aggressive collection. So I'm sure, it's getting to be a bit absurd. But you know what? Happy to be a driver and happy to have them.
It's funny. We talked at one point, with the new network and an opportunity potentially for you on television. You flat out told me, I'm not done driving yet. And with these kind of opportunities, making the best of it, the key's getting through, not the one-offs, but getting through a season and having somebody say, we need this guy in our car.
Well, I mean, it's something that I just hope to keep delivering on. I mean, haven't done a race all year except for Indy, which is a little bit different, and we qualified the car inside the top 10 after the engine penalty. So, I feel like that's probably not bad. If I was a younger driver, maybe it would get more reaction, but because it's me, maybe not. But it's because of the team. I mean, the team's giving me a car to drive. That's amazing. So, we're going to keep working to try to, fight the Penske's and the cars right at the very, very sharp end. But, my teammate, Roman, he's been awesome. And I think we have 2 fast cars. So the goal is to get points. We can't be risky, but yeah, it's nice to be at the front.
Remind me, was it the USF 2000 that you ran for Juncos?
Well, it was Pro Mazda at the time.
Pro Mazda, yeah.
Indy Pro 2000, I guess now.
So tell me this. Are there any people in the shop that are still the same from when you were there that you remember?
Well, Ricardo, his brother, and his son. That's pretty much it. So, but his son was an infant then, and now he's on my stand telling me information. So that made me feel old for sure. Okay, well, welcome to the club. You're a heck of a lot younger than I, so I'll still call you kid. Let's talk about that Highline practice. How do you feel with it? I mean, I think it's hard to tell because this is a different compounded tire. So the tire is not at all where we're going to be racing. But it's just nice to get comfortable up there. I think, that's where you're going to want to make spots up on the starts and restarts. This race can always be exciting if you're able to make the car work a little bit higher. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of us really don't know until we probably get out there tomorrow. But this is always helpful. The series does a lot that they, to help us try to make sure the racing is as good as it can be.
Does it have to be a commitment early for the drivers to keep that high line open? If not, is it a waste about 20, 30 laps in?
I really don't know. I mean, I could see some people if you're going to stay side by side at the start, I could see people staying side by side for a few laps in a row. And if that happens, then it obviously is going to be clear for longer. But once cars do fall in single file, you will have a single file element of that race. But yeah, we'll just have to see.
We'll let you get back and get acquainted. Thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you.
It's Connor Daly, guys.
Yeah, good stuff from Connor Daly. And I don't know about you, Davey, and Ricardo Juncos is free to do, whatever they want to do with that race team. But as the checkered flag flies on this highline session, leaving a 1-hour practice session left, I kind of think that at the very least, Romain Grosjean and Connor Daly would be an interesting pairing.
Yeah, they would kind of opposite of each other, right? It could be a good thing, right? I mean,
and, I know that a lot of teams, like to go with the veteran and then, the hot rookie and everything. But boy, that'd be two veteran racers, guys with a lot of experience on that race team.
Yeah, and obviously Connor's doing a really good job with that team. Obviously, they're don't know exactly where they stand. There's been so much controversy with that team and talk, and don't know what's right or wrong. We just hope everything comes out smoothly with that team. They're really good guys. Juncos, Hollinger, very good guys, and work very hard to have a team here. So hopefully they're going to be part of the charter system. Hopefully they'll be here next year, and they have to be looking at Connor. I think he's doing a really good job for him. I mean, Connor wants to be back. He doesn't want to be done racing. He's been a great fill-in for the last couple of years, but it's time he wants to be full-time back in IndyCar. Now, as he said, I don't know if they're going to be paying attention to me, but if I was a young guy, they probably would be. Well, that's, he's got something. A lot of these teams want to invest in younger generation, try to find the next superstar, and there's a lot of them out there, so we'll just see where it all falls.
Well, too, Davey, simply put, if you are looking to get a good bang for your buck in terms of sponsorship dollars for the big event of the year, the Indianapolis 500, and you're looking for a driver to not only represent you and your company well off the track, but do so on the track in practice and qualifying and on race day, I think over the past few years, Connor Daly would be a pretty decent investment.
Yeah, I think. Right. Connor's came a long ways. All of his the opportunities he's had, the tribulations he's went through. I mean, he keeps fighting and keeps going and keeps performing. And so, somebody gets on his side, really likes what they see. Obviously, performance is a big part. I know that he didn't have it for a while. A couple things went bad for him. But right now, I feel like he's kind of taking it to the next level and is really doing a good job.
Well, the past couple of years, those of you that have had the opportunity to follow us on a regular basis in between some of our shows, we offer, I think, a fascinating feature. I had a lot of fun doing it. I know Michael Young did too. It's called a road trip. It's where we find a little bit out about the driver outside of racing, some of the things that make them tick, some of the experiences and the fun things they do. We ask them a few crazy questions here and there, and they've all played along very well over the past couple of years and enjoyed being a part of that. So it's time now to take a road trip with Ed Carpenter.
Race fans, strap in and hold on tight. It's time to hop in the car with an NTT IndyCar Series driver. This is the IndyCar Radio Road Trip.
And now it's time to take a road trip with Ed Carpenter. Looking forward to this because I'm sure back in the USAC days you did many road trips for business, but were there any pleasurable road trips? Did you ever take any of those throughout the years as you were growing up or when you were in college?
Yeah, I've lived life on the road for a long time, but yeah, going back to my childhood, obviously traveling quarter midget racing all over the country. But every summer we would take a couple weeks as a family. We did a lot of camping, so kind of did all over the West, Northeast. So tons of family time in the suburban over the years.
If there were one road trip that you remember from your childhood and you could take again with your family, what would it be and where would you go?
I think we went out to like Jackson Hole and Yellowstone was probably one of my favorites as a kid. So, sometimes a lot of those trips blend together. It may have been over a couple of years, the summers meshing together, but I love that part of the country and have good memories of just hiking, exploring, rafting, all those fun things.
You spend time, obviously, with the kids in the car. Is there any music that they now force you to listen to that you actually enjoy?
Not really, but it's interesting. Normally, they have their AirPods in and are just consuming, their music or YouTube videos or whatever they're listening or watching. Usually it's fairly quiet.
They're getting older now. Any television shows that they watch that you maybe would glance over their shoulder and start watching with them?
McKenna she's gotten into kind of older shows. So she's watched like all of Full House, which was, a popular show in our house growing up. So it's kind of fun revisiting some of those things with her. The boys, I don't typically watch whatever they're watching. They're into things that I'm not going to watch.
You just turn your head and shake it and say, okay, boys, whatever it is.
Yeah. They're boys.
Looking back, when you were growing up in the USAC races, we talked a little bit about all the traveling you did. What was your favorite memories, your favorite USAC tracks, the places that you used to run?
The Belleville Nationals was always a highlight. It's just a really cool trip, really cool community, the way it's a small town that, a lot like the 500 where, that event comes to town and the whole place just is all about the Belleville Nationals. So that was always a really fun event and a highlight of every season, in the midget days.
So move forward now, your favorite IndyCar memory.
There's a lot, whether it was, my first time qualifying for the Indy 500, my first IndyCar win, first win with Ed Carpenter Racing. There's different milestones and highlights that depending on the day and mood or how nostalgic I'm feeling, that I prioritize more, but I cherish all the memories, really.
Obviously, your love of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the desire to win that race. Do you ever dream about winning the Indianapolis 500? Has that ever been like one of those reoccurring dreams that you have that gets so realistic that when it actually comes time to actually run the race, you're like, oh, this is what it could feel like to win it?
I do dream about it some. I don't know how many races I run in my head any given year between events, but it's something that never leaves my mind for very long.
Toughest part about the kids getting older, having the team, doing everything that you're doing. You're a very, very busy individual, but what the kids getting older, what is the toughest part about watching them growing up?
I mean, it happens fast. The toughest part is really just missing things, having 3 kids and they're all quite busy now in their own sports and lives. And we have 3 and there's only 2 parents in our household. So we're always missing something, even when we're not traveling for racing. But honestly, I really enjoy this phase of life. The kids are 15, 13, and 10. As they get older and more mature, I feel like their relationship is a lot more productive than when they're younger, because they're actually, they're coachable and they're getting to a point to where they'll listen, and you feel like you can, make a bigger difference and help them along on their path more so than when they're younger and don't have, really the ability to think at a deep level. So I really enjoy this period that we're in right now.
Switching gears, if you could wave a magic wand, what track would you want to see back on the IndyCar schedule?
Probably Kentucky would be my first choice.
Always a magical place. It's very special for you, and always a lot of fun in time that the IndyCar series would run down there, certainly. Last television show you binge watched?
I just did Vikings Valhalla on Netflix, and it was pretty entertaining. So it was good enough that I searched if there was going to be another season, and there is. So I've got that to look forward to.
All right. A great road trip, and we appreciate your time as always. Ed Carpenter, thank you, sir.
No problem. Always good talking.
This has been the IndyCar Radio Road Trip. Stay tuned for more live coverage from the track all weekend long.
And about 7 minutes away or so from the final 60-minute practice session before we go racing tomorrow, the Barberino Automotive Group 500. Let's get an update from Michael Young.
Yeah, there was a precautionary reliability measure is how Santino Ferrucci phrased it to me, the reason why he did not turn a lap, and we are in the pit box now. And I said to Larry Foyt, I said, Larry, we got to finish our conversation because you got busy and now we have a moment. So ultimately, I think, let's be fair, I think it was a surprise for everybody that David Malukas announcement happened. I think everybody's excited to see him come over to AJ Foyt Racing. Where does that leave Santino, and where does that leave Stingray? Is that a work in progress? Do you even know?
No, it is a work in progress. Yeah, sorry. We've already had an eventful day here. It just keeps going. Hopefully this final practice is nice and calm for us. But, yeah, it does. No, we're excited to welcome David to the team. But, still figuring out with talking to both our other guys, so we'll have those announcements coming later. But, just want to keep focusing on finishing this year strong.
Now that it's been announced, when do talks like that begin? When did that process with David begin? Was it when he was still injured? How does that work?
I'm not saying. I mean, it happened really quickly, honestly. As some of these things, it just opportunity came up and was there. So,
Is that something that you initiated the conversation? Was David open to it? I guess people really wonder how that happens because it just happened out of the blue.
Sure, it's always happening to me. Obviously, when his situation at McLaren changed earlier in the year, everyone, I'm sure, was wondering what was going on. And no, it's just one of those things where I think both of us, we all saw a good opportunity to work together. So, these things, it's part of the sport. You hate, sometimes I say you hate because you're in the season. You still have a lot of work to do with the guys that you're working with and all that. We went through it with Kyle, right, when he went to Andretti early in the year. It's always a tough situation. But, hey, it's just part of the sport. It's part of what goes on. And, like I say, we're just focused on finishing this year strong and keep building this team to where we want to get to, which is racing for wins. We're happy to be in the top 10 with Santino, but we want to start continuing to try to move up the ladder.
Are you proud of what you've been able to build? It's been an impressive run. I mean, what happened at the Indianapolis 500 the last few years, even Stingray up there running and holding pace with the rest of the field. Where do you stand as president of AJ Foyt watching this team grow? Because it never happens overnight, but you guys have done an amazing job.
No, it doesn't. I mean, and trust me, I know how hard this league is. It is so hard. I mean, if you look up and down this row, the drivers, the teams, it's so tough and so good. And you see it every week. You got different guys up some weeks and different people down. It's just so tough. So, yes, I'm very happy with this year of what we've done. It's just, when people are competitive, you always want more, right? And sometimes it does take time, but we've been working on getting the best people. To me, racing's a people game. We can all go out and buy these cars and things, but you got to have the best people and the right people working on them. And we have a really good group right now, and we just want to finish strong.
Lastly, the charter system, initial talks and how this will work. Will that allow itself or lend itself to a 3-car team for you in the future?
Oh, I think it would. We, obviously we would be allowed, from what I understand. I don't know. All the rules aren't out there yet. But, yeah, if we start a new team, I don't think you would be in the charter system because of just the way it's written. But, so I don't know. 3 cars is always tough. I'd love to keep all the guys we have. I just don't know that would be a possibility.
All right, we'll let you get back to it. Thank you for the time, as always.
Hey, thanks, bud.
Fingers crossed for the rest of a clean session.
Yes, for sure.
There you go. That's Larry Foyt, guys.
Great line of questioning, Davey, and just, how these conversations come about between drivers and teams. And, I remember our good friend and one guy that served as our driver analyst, Zach Veach, told me that, a few years ago he was at a charity karting event in the off-season that Larry Foyt had down in Houston, and he kind of mentioned in passing to Larry, hey, thought about adding a car at Indy because Zach didn't really have anything working at the time. And they're like, no, we don't have any interest in anything like that. And he said, I just kept working on him. And then, before I left and flew home, he said, hey, let's talk. And it ended up, he was able to put a deal together.
Yeah. So, and that's one race. I could see AJ and Larry doing a 3rd car at Indy potentially, kind of a long shot, but I don't know about full-time. I think Larry is really content on, as he just said, he wants to win races. Larry, that team, he wants to put the AJ Foyt, the logo, back in victory lane, get his family back on top. We know that he could do it. He's got some great drivers. I think it's a situation where the bottom line is he wants to go get really good sponsors and hire the best possible drivers he can, and I think that's kind of what he's looking at, and we'll soon find out when that all lays out. But who wouldn't want to see that team in victory lane? I mean, they're such good guys. I mean, obviously they gave me my start in IndyCar, and I've lifelong appreciation for it. Lifelong friends with that family, and nothing better, man. I'd go crazy, honestly, if they were in victory lane. I would just love to see that. And I think it could happen. I think that with the Penske Alliance, the area is set up. It's been very, very healthy. They have a lot of the same guys, a lot of dedicated guys. They do have two cars, but one's in Texas, one's in Indy. That creates a little bit of an issue, but you know what? They can get it done. They have it all worked out pretty well. I know the Texas guys, they're on the road quite a few more days of the year just because they don't go home as much. But, man, they want to win. Everybody from, every single guy on that team wants to win. And man, I just hope to see it happen. I have a feeling I know it's going to happen long term for next year of that team, but until they say what's going to happen, you never know.
One of the first races I traveled to as a young pit reporter was 1996. It was at New Hampshire. And the first driver I talked to over the course of that weekend was a driver for A.J. Foyt named Davey Hamilton.
Yeah, how about that? Great day.
The years have been kinder to you overall than they have to me. I mean, you don't look a darn bit different.
Yeah, well,
Go back and look at pictures from those days.
I feel a little different. That's for darn sure. I miss those days. It's every athlete, everybody goes through transition of being a racer and really putting full effort to it, and then age takes over, and then we get to talk about it. But I love being up in the booth with you guys. I enjoy it. It keeps me involved in the sport, obviously. And then you love seeing the new generation come. Think that kind of brings back good memories. Going, I remember being there. I rember being there.
And in those days we had, I'll never forget, we had our reputation, based upon the Indianapolis 500 as a network, and they made the commitment to do all of the then IRL races. And boy, in the early days, we'd walk into the credential office and like, who are you with? What are you doing here? And boy, it was so much different. We traveled, almost as many engineers at that time as we did, because we did everything on site. All the commercials and everything were done, and we did all of our own engineering, all of our RF and all that stuff. And
well, don't be mistaken. Us drivers, we didn't know where the racetracks were, what gate to go in, and any of that either. It was new for all of us. But what you never want to turn those days back in, because what a pleasure that was, and what a great opportunity, obviously, to learn that.
I know I've always said this. I said, I have a little different view of the split than most people, but the fact of the matter is that I don't know that I would have got this opportunity had that not happened.
No, with a lot of drivers, and that split, there was the controversy, obviously, and I know I was driving for A.J. Foyt, and I was going to go where A.J. went, obviously, and I was happy the route that he went, because I really feel that the Indy 500 is our Super Bowl, and that was being, but behind the scenes, that was being risked to have an Indy 500, and you don't want to do that. That's the biggest race in the world, and I still appreciate Tony George and everybody involved, and I know that we're all back to one. It's all great, but I think today, because of that, it's stronger than ever, and I think that was part of making this thing strong, knowing that, hey, we got to band together, we got to do what's right for every racetrack, every fan, every race team, every race owner, everything, and I think that's where we're at today.
I know that there's a lot of drivers, and you're one of them, that have a ton of love and affection and enjoyed a one-of-a-kind relationship with the Holman George family, but I think of all the drivers that ever competed there, you'd have to put A.J. near the top of that list.
Oh, no question about it. Absolutely. And he has a loyalty there. He knows what made A.J. He always says, I got quite lucky, and he just says that, but you look at his record, that's not luck.
The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, that's right. And, building his own engines. I actually had some friends that restored a 1977 Foyt Coyote car.
Wow.
And it was at Long Beach, actually. You guys probably seen it there. Went and looked, and even the rods in the engine had Foyt name on them. I mean, that's how far it went. He was building every piece part, Jack Stearns and his daddy, and I mean, so many people involved with that to make it strong. And man, what a everybody built everything on their own back then. You didn't go buy parts, you built them, and he was a master at building, working on them, driving. But the key thing is he won it. It doesn't matter if it's a stock car, an Indy car, a midget, a simple car. He won in everything. So he wasn't quite lucky. He was quite good.
So the clock is rolling on this 1 hour practice session. We're 4 minutes into it. A lot of takers already, as we expected there would be, and we heard several drivers post-qualifying, Davey, make the statement, well, we'll see how we do in race trim. So describe to the novice the difference in that race car between your qualifying setup and race trim.
Yeah, so one thing that they do at qualifying, obviously, is you have to have a good balance in your car, but the aero package may change. You may take a little bit of wing out of it. You're not in dirty air. You're by yourself. You want to get down these straightaways really good, and you want to make sure that downforce continues you through the corner for a good lap. But when you get in dirty air, you need more downforce. You need to change the car a little bit, and that does change things up quite a bit. As we see Will Power, let's watch him real quick. He tried that outside, going down turn 3. It worked. He stayed up there all the way through the corner. So right now, so far, we see guys working that outside groove. But there is a big change, and then you got to figure that out. How much downforce do you want? How much aero balance do you need for the dirty air? And then, are you going to run that second groove or not?
Santino Ferrucci and Colton Herta, we see them working in tandem off of turn number 4. Things start to tighten up a little bit between them as they reach the start-finish line. Colton Herta tucks right up underneath Santino Ferrucci, takes a peek to the inside, decides to see if that high groove will work, and as I say that, guides it right back to the bottom of the racetrack. So at what point did he start to feel that dirty air when he pulls up on Ferrucci?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. When you get within like 5 car lengths, you're starting to feel it. And when you get closer to that, you start really feeling it. Now, one thing that's different that I'll have to say from the older cars with this aero screen, a lot of times you felt that dirty air mark in your helmet,
right.
in your body felt it. But with this aero screen, you don't feel it in your body that way. You don't. So it's a whole different a way of learning what dirty air does to your car with these aero screens on. I think it's just different. You just got to get used to it. Obviously, those that haven't drove with aero screen takes a little bit to get used to. How do you define that dirty air? Because normally, like I say, it was your helmet moving around, some things like that they do not have today. His Power is on that outside groove again. Looks like he's going to try to go on the outside. I can't tell what car that is, but it seems like he's going to make it happen.
Is there a point? Looks like a car of Catherine Legg.
Catherine, yes.
Is there a point when you come off of, say, turn number 4 and you're headed toward turn 1 and you feel the benefit of a draft? Is there a point in time where you're like, uh-oh, that's no longer a draft, that's dirty air now?
That's dirty air now, that's right. The draft's great, right? Going down that straightaway bend, you love sucking up on a car in front of you, but then when you get that corner, you got to make sure that you're cleared down there so, it doesn't bang you around, and so, yeah, you're right. So when you get, probably 20 car lengths of the corner, or maybe even more than that, these speeds, man, you got to be careful, make sure you're in good position not to be in dirty air on entry.
Well, if there's a guy that's going to be comfortable in the high line, conventional wisdom tells me, and my experience covering him tells me, it'll be Joseph Newgarden. As I say that, he makes a pass around Linus Lundqvist, and Linus Lundqvist woed up plenty at the entrance to turn number 3, and that caused a big lift from the car of Pato O'Ward. That trio heads off of turn number 4 right now and heads back toward the start-finish line. So, bit of a moment over there for Linus Lundqvist. Yeah, it
sure was. I mean, I don't know what the lift was for, but they had to make some, some aggressive moves to keep from getting into a little bit of an incident over there as Newgarden goes to the top of the chart, Pato O'Ward second. How about this? Nolan Siegel in that third spot at 172.586.
173.685, the fast lap for Joseph Newgarden so far. Pato O'Ward second quick. Nolan Siegel, Will Power, Connor Daly fifth fastest. Herta, Erickson, Palou, Lundqvist, and Simpson through 10th. Grosjean, Robb, Rosenqvist, Kirkwood, VK. Armstrong, Malukas, McLaughlin, Ferrucci, Harvey, then Lundgaard, then Dixon, then Fittipaldi, then Catherine Legg, then Rossi, Graham Rahal, and Ed Carpenter. Ed's turned 6 laps. Scott Dixon has turned 5 laps. So back to the situation involving Connor Daly as we're watching things get awfully tight between Joseph Newgarden and Pato O'Ward. Situation involving Connor Daly. Fans may wonder, Davey, it seems as though every time somebody needs somebody to fill a seat, every time a team needs somebody to fill a seat, he's the guy that gets the call. So folks might wonder, well, if that's the case, you've got all these teams with all this confidence in 2 or 3 series, mind you, Xfinity and other forms. So why can't he secure that full-time?
Well, it's tough at this point in his career. It's like he is getting a little bit older. They want to look for that new young guy, but they know they don't want to put a young guy and just throw him in there to the wolves, so to speak. They know that Connor has some experience, so he's that guy. Well, maybe we don't want him all the time, but man, he's good to put in right now just to fill in for us. Not a great spot for Connor to be in. He deserves. He wants a full-time deal. He's good enough to have a full-time deal. But it's just these teams. I mean, I went through it too. You get to a point in your career to where they're looking at Nolan Siegel, how young he is. They nabbed onto him, and they're looking for that next young superstar, I think. And sometimes, as Connor even mentioned, that maybe that does, if he is younger, they'd be paying more attention.
Well, and I think the important thing is when things haven't worked out particularly well with any full-time opportunities that he's had with race teams, the smart thing that he's done is that, he's continued to have a relationship with those teams. And, I mean, gosh, as I said, your last day, you got to be putting forth as much effort as you did on your first day.
Yeah, and I think he's proven that he has stayed friends with everybody. I know for a fact that, when the Benton Isle Ed Carpenter didn't work out for him, I seen him with Todd and the Benton Isle folks and Ed. I mean, I think there's, he said, hey, it is what it is. You guys had your reasons. You wish it didn't happen, but it did. But you never know when the opportunity may strike again.
I'm hoping that something positive will happen for Connor Daly moving forward. And I know this, over the years that I've been doing this, when certain drivers take the lead at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the energy is just different. And over the years, for me, it's been Tony Kanaan, it's been Elio Castro-Neves, it's been Ed Carpenter, and it's been Connor Daly.
That's right. It really has. It's changed. I mean, they really have a fan following, especially at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as you said, and that's going to continue on. I think Pato's kind of the guy right now.
He's coming.
He's going to be a guy that people really like. Elio Castro-Neves was at that point as well. So, there is fan favorites there for sure.
With his performances at the Speedway, which of late have been impressive, Pato Award, people have said, okay, do you put the label on him? It's not a matter of, and Palou would be another one. It's not a matter of if he wins the 500 but when. And I said, well, you would never, you can't say that because look no further than Marco Andretti.
And Michael. That's right. There's been a lot of great race drivers that go on and on that are great, absolutely fantastic race drivers, haven't won that darn race. And so it's, you like to think that, but it doesn't always happen that easily.
I know that, Marco was inconsolable, finishing second in his debut at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but his family's history is why he was inconsolable. He knew he may never get that close again.
That's right, and never did. Never had that opportunity. Did sit on a pole, had some opportunities there, got on a pole, but just never had the package to fulfill it. And then you look at Michael, how many races he led there and how many laps he led and not getting that victory. And, we know he's one of the all-time greats when it comes to wins and so forth, but, he has to look back on, I couldn't pull off the 500.
Joseph Newgarden and Pato Award continue to pace the way. About 48 minutes remaining in the session, 173.685 for Joseph Newgarden. Pato Award at 173.260. Nolan Siegel, Davey, continues to be impressive in race trim.
Really good race trim car with Siegel. Struggling in qualifying a little bit. He's going to start towards the back of this field, but man, has a really good race car. Looks like he's able to move around and move forward. And now look at Stingray Robb in that P9 position.
Yeah.
Stingray, like we can just say, starting the back of the pack, but seems like they have a really good package right there. He didn't know why they qualified so slow. Was a little disappointed in it. Matter of fact, where he is right now is basically where he qualified. And there's guys like Dixon right now just shot up to P6. Another one, Daly, Power, Dixon, Herta. Another one after that accident. This is up P7 right now. Erickson, Palou. They're starting to move up, gain some speed right now. Grosjean actually just gained some time. But how about Maluka still in that 19 spot? Hasn't got that good lap in yet. But we don't know what tires are on, what they're trying to do, full loads, running different lines and just playing around. But we still have 47 minutes in this practice session.
Yeah, 47 minutes in this session before we go racing tomorrow. And let's not forget the Indy next race rolls off at 2:50 local time, 3:50 Eastern. And, we wondered what qualifying would look like, Davey, because some unfamiliar names were at the top of timing and scoring for the Indy next practice session. But when all was said and done, pretty impressive flex of muscle by the Andretti Global team.
Man, they are on top of it right now. They really, really put some muscle in and going to lock that front row down. And, just really good job. Going to be hard to beat those two tomorrow.
Yeah, Louis Foster, Jamie Chadwick, both with good qualifying runs. And
both with wins this year, both with some confidence going, absolutely.
5 wins for Louis Foster, leads that championship by 77 points. And then flag-to-flag coverage of our event beginning with pre-race festivities at 5 p.m. And so I would imagine that Highline practice, it looks as though from what I'm seeing, Davey, there's some drivers starting to develop some confidence in that Highline.
Yeah, right now, I see majority of them right now are taking a high entry. They're on the bottom in the middle, though, then kind of high coming off, which that's going to generate marbles in the center of that racetrack. Don't know how long they're going to be able to run it, but right now it seems like as we go, the longer we go, the more that bottom line is being favored right now. We do see some of the good news is we see a little bit of passing. We see some guys catch up to other cars, but the more they run the bottom, the more they're not going to be able to run that outside line.
Issues in qualifying for Colton Herta. The car stepped down on him between 1 and 2. He made pretty pretty significant contact with the outside retaining wall, damaging the rear of the race car. They made repairs. His session ended early in that high groove session because he wasn't running the high groove, and race control said you got to park it, so he didn't get a lot of laps in there. But Davey, the reality of it is, rolling off 25th tomorrow, from a strategic standpoint, the planning process tonight and then again tomorrow for Colton Herta, going to need some help with some well-timed cautions, I think, probably to get him into contention.
Yeah, strategy. It's going to be about strategy for Colton tomorrow. Has a long ways to go. Not saying you can't win from the back, because we know that you can, but I'm going to tell you that strategy will be a part of it. He's not just going to pass all the cars to get up towards the front, so a lot has to go into that as we watch right now. Talking about A.J. Foyt earlier in the Frucci, he's on track right now. Showing him go around, the car looks okay, just no speed in it, in 21st position right now, so looks like they as Larry said, kind of been struggling with this car this week, and just a lot of gremlins are hitting them. We know that at Toronto that with that incident that they had late in the race where he got upside down.
My goodness.
That may be a new car that they're just trying to get the bugs right. It just showed it again.
We're getting a replay of that.
Where he launched that thing, and man, how lucky, that hit the wall just right, or not that fencing where it didn't go through it.
Well, and again, I tip of the cap to Green Sabry, and whoever is in charge of assembling that fence and that wall, which is temporary there, because I'm going to tell you what, it took a big hit and flipped that car right back toward the racetrack, which it was designed to do. The good news is that's not a portion of the racetrack where there were any fans. I mean, there's no grandstands there, no bleachers, nothing like that. There were no photographers in the area, anything of that nature, because it's kind of a tree-lined area, as we see an issue for I believe is that Siegel or O'Ward?
That would be Nolan Siegel, the number 6 car, right front tire flat. I am assuming they're going to go yellow. Yes, they are. Just looks like maybe he ran over something. Normally you just don't see a tire go flat like that. Didn't get in the wall after it. He may have gotten the wall to cause it. I'm not 100% sure what happened there. Don't see any bent A-arm at this point from what I could see on TV, but he's going to roll it around and bring it onto the pits with the right front flat.
They could make that 6 look a little different from the 5.
I tell you what, I'll be honest, I don't know how you can make your cars look so close to the same with a different 5, 6, and 7, but when you look at those numbers, they all look the same. It's just pretty crazy.
Rossi's white helps a lot.
It does help.
The white on that car makes a big difference for sure. So bad news for Nolan Siegel, having this session stalled for a bit because he is currently third fastest at 172.586. We talk about the significance of starting up front and the importance of it at most races. Certainly not the case here, because a stat that we shared earlier, Davey, only 3 times in 17 races has the pole sitter gotten to victory lane here. So that tells you it's a long race. A lot of things could happen.
Yeah, we're watching on board right now with a Swift. It actually blew going down the front straightaway. I mean, you've seen that tire on the inside, which they have a lot of camber in these tires, and they works inside, and it blew going down the front straightaway. He locked it up, was able to get down on the warm-up lane, and able to keep that car under control. But it definitely, he didn't hit anything. That tire just, he must have ran over something and popped it, and put him in a precarious position.
Folks might wonder what the sparks were coming out from underneath that race car.
So we got skid pads underneath the car. A lot of times made out of titanium, which would throw some pretty impressive sparks. And so when the tire goes flat, it gets on that skid, it throws a lot of sparks.
Jake Query, there's just not much left of that Firestone Firehawk. We see you in that pit box, keeping an eye on the proceedings.
The amazing thing about it is the fact that the rubber of that Firestone Firehawk still essentially stayed on the wheel of the car, because the outside of it, the threading all the way around, it's hung on by about, let's say, 10% of the rubber that still attaches it all the way through. So we'll take a look at it. Firestone's looking at it right now and get the lowdown on whether or not they have determined that it was a piece of debris that he might have hit, or what may have caused this problem for Nolan Siegel. Keep in mind, Nolan Siegel is one that in qualifying had said that he felt like he just simply missed on a couple of shifts, especially going down the main straight on his first lap. As a matter of fact, he hit the rev limiter. Nick Yeoman had noticed that along the main straight in lap number 1 of his qualifying effort. So he feels like there is still some speed in that car that he did not have in qualifying. We'll find out what the issue was on this particular tire and get back to you, Mark.
I may have gotten a glimpse of PR Royalty standing next to Jake Query. I believe I saw Pat Caporelli standing down there.
More than likely.
One of the all-time best. One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate to have her as a PR girl at one point in my career. Very good. Best in the business, really. She does a really good job. And obviously over with Firestone at this point right now, doing a good job. A lot of ladies over at Firestone. I think Kara down there, obviously in that pit very quickly. I don't know where they were, but they definitely made their way to that pit very quickly.
Jake Query.
And they have taken the tire away, has Firestone, to go look at it, because in looking at it, they determined that they couldn't tell exactly what it was that might have caused that. They believe that it was a piece of debris, but they want to be able to look over it. Of course, safety is paramount. That's the important thing, so they want to see what they can learn from that. That tire was taken away on one of the little carts here, and Firestone will take it back. They will then determine what the issue was. The early onset, of course, I think they were looking to see if, in fact, there was a piece of debris that might have torn it, but there wasn't anything that jumped out immediately at them. So they will do a full autopsy, if you will, and then determine what it might have been that caused that problem here for Nolan Siegel.
Well, in terms of motorsports entities that provide tires to series, I think I may be a little partial, a little biased, but I think they are the absolute best at what they do, Davey. And, I know that just recently they rejoined the Indy Next and took, a sponsorship of that. The Indy Next presented by Firestone. And, boy, I tell you, they just it created more work for them over the course of a season, over the course of a race weekend with the mount and dismount. But that whole team just does a tremendous job for the series.
I've been very fortunate, Mark, with tires. I was with Goodyear as a driver for Goodyear, as a driver for Hoosier Racing Tire, and then now Firestone here in the INDYCAR series. So was able to learn so much about tires and how you test them and what you did. And I'll have to say that Firestone, everybody said, well, competition's good. Why don't you have Firestone and Goodyear, battling it out again, or you have American Racer or Hoosier? It just feasibly isn't the way to go. And I think Firestone has done such a great job with the IndyCar tires to make them. First of all, you got to have safety, because if there's competition, they're going to try to go, one competitor's going to try to go softer than the other one just to make it faster, but then they may not last. And there's just too many safety things that go on. But I'll tell you, with Firestone, they still want this tire fast. We've seen it. They still make them to go to the edge and set track records and make them really good for everybody.
You hit on the key for me when people start pining for the old days of run what you brung in May and that sort of thing. I mean, bottom line is this. By doing it the way it's being done, safety is first and foremost. And again, I say, if you don't think that is worth the time and energy and investment, and you don't agree with that philosophy, go back and watch Iowa and go back and watch Toronto.
So when you say run what you brung, we had a saying with the Super Modifieds. We had T-shirts made of it said, "Run what you brung and hope you brung enough." Well, Super Modifieds are struggling right now. That didn't work. I mean, that just didn't work. We had to start going to rules, start getting everything, the cost contained, the safety contained, getting everybody to where they could afford their race cars. And those are days of the past, Mark.
Yeah. 38 minutes remaining in this session. Been a relatively uneventful one, except for the recent issues involving Nolan Siegel. Joseph Newgarden continues to set the pace at 173.685. Award, Siegel, Dixon. Kirkwood the top five. Alex Below is 6th fastest. Will Power 7th fastest. Daly 8th. 9th Herta. 10th Erickson. Stingray Robbie 11th. Lundqvist is 12th. Kiffin Simpson 13th, Grosjean 14th, Rosenquist 15th, VK 16th, 17th Rossi, 18th Harvey, 19th Armstrong, 20th Malukas, 21st Ferrucci, 22nd McLaughlin, 23rd Lundgaard, 24th Carpenter, 25th Rahal, 26th Fittipaldi, and 27th Catherine Legg. For all we know, there's still plenty we do not know about what the roster and the grid will look like by the time we roll off in St. Petersburg in 2025, Davey. And that's the interesting thing. The reality of it is there are some drivers that we have enjoyed watching throughout the course of this season and seasons past that may be Indy-only efforts next year. Yeah. If they are in this series at all, and there may be some drivers competing in other series right now, not even here in the United States, that we will see make their debuts in 2025.
That's right. That's exactly what's going to happen. I had a really good conversation with Bill Abel. Obviously, his son Jacob Abel is in second of the championship at Indy Next fight. They wanted an IndyCar. They wanted to come come IndyCar racing and have their own team. But the way it's structured right now, there's just no room for them, it doesn't look like. And so they're still trying very hard to do that. I know that he would love to do it. If it would take doing a second car, I'm pretty sure he would do that as well. But right now, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes scenes happening. And, Roger Penske, what hasn't he done and what has he been around? And him and his staff, they're going to come up with the right program to make it successful long-term. It may not fit a lot of our ideas, but again, they may. I mean, what we want is a strong series with strong sponsors, with everybody be able to be equal and be able to fund it properly. And most importantly, we want our fans to have the best racing in the world. And I think that we, a lot of tracks, we can produce the best racing in the world. And I think they're going to get back to that. Or some of the tracks we go to right now are pretty impressive. And, you look at the entire field within a second, how competitive can you be? I mean, it's pretty darn good. And our driver roster, I mean, there's nobody out here that does not deserve to be here. I mean, there's some drivers that always find themselves in the front. There's some drivers that just don't have quite the experience in the back, but they still all talented. They still all deserve to be here. And I'm going to use Jack Harvey. I mean, I look up, he's in 21st right now. He's been on poles. He's been able to win races. It's just he's got to get that happy spot back, get with the team and get the funding proper. And he didn't just forget how to drive. It's just he needs to be in the right situation. Same with Rossi in 20th.
Yeah, he's had some health issues this year too, Jack Harvey. More recently, those health issues have befallen him, but appears as though that he's healthy and hopefully looking for a strong finish with Dale Coyne Racing.
That's right.
Newgarden continues P1 at 173.685, and this is a place where, quite frankly, he has enjoyed an incredible amount of success of late.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I just want to bring this one up just real quick before I forget it. Lundgaard, I looked at Lundgaard and I go, man, the Ray Hall Letterman team really struggling. I see Fittipaldi in 30th. I see Graham in 24th. I seen Lundgaard was in 23rd. Within one lap, he's P12 right now. Pretty respectable. And remember, we were surprised in qualifying how far off pace he was.
It's a mystery to me, and I know it is for their drivers as well. And I don't think I'm not being critical here. I'm just stating fact. I think clearly they have yet to get a handle on qualifying. But there is no doubt that Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing produces really good race cars for their drivers.
That's right. I absolutely agree. They sure do. And you're right. The qualifying is their Achilles heel. They just cannot get that down where they need to have it to have really fast cars. But they do bring good race cars. I say, man, some of the races we've seen Graham do in the last few years, going, holy smokes! Look at him come through. If he just would have started better, he really had an opportunity to win that darn race. So you're exactly right. And you know what? My good like family as well, the Vukovic family, and Bill II, who just unfortunately passed away not long ago, a little over a year ago. He told me when his son passed away, Billy III, we were best of friends, and so Bill helped me, in my IndyCar career. So I went and asked him, about like, what do you think about this team, Bill, or what do you think about that team, or and he goes, here's what you do. Open the paper on Sunday, you see who's in front, what teams are in front, and you see what teams are in back, and you can't argue that. Now it changes, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, it's either sometimes the team has the proper engineering, the proper funding to do it right, sometimes they don't. We look at Foyt, with that Foyt team, also they fell towards the bottom. They were running pretty bad a few years back. Well, last year and this year, things starting to fire up. I mean, they're getting really good drivers. It seems like the sponsors are coming their way. They have some really good engineering. They have some good people in that team that really want to win. So it moves around. It's kind of a moving target. But when you look at the consistency of the Ganassis, the Penske's, right? I mean, you can't argue that. You look at even the Andretti, I would have to say the big three. Now you got Arrow McLaren, which, they've been a little up and down in consistency, but you got to look at those teams that are always at the top. They have something a little special. So if I'm a team owner, I'm going to do all I can to try to copy what they do and try to get that, this stability.
Well, and the thing that makes it difficult when it comes to, figuring out what it is they do and how they do it, a lot of times, Davey, it boils down to people.
Yes.
And if you don't have the people, you're not going to be able to recreate that success.
Yeah, and let's get some, this is not an easy job. I mean, The good side of it is we run pretty steadily from March to September. We have a lot of races. We took off for the Olympics this year for a few weeks, had a little bit of break, but most of the time we're a lot of weekends in a row, sometimes 4 or 5 weekends in a row. You look at for all through May into June, we're on the road. It's really hard work for these teams. I mean, these crew people that are on the road nonstop, and then we get to September and they don't do anything till March. Kind of an odd series, right? Because that's like, oh, now what do we do? There's no racing going on. There's a lot of layoffs that happen within our teams. It's a challenging business to really get good people in there and keep good people in there. You have to have that passion. It's not like they're getting paid over the top and they're buying the $1 million houses down the road. These are working guys working their tail off, spending time away from their family to have the passion to do this, and trying to find those people that are really good, year in, year out is getting more and more difficult.
Well, once upon a time, Indy Next, when it was known as Indy Lights, I mean, it was basically seen as a driver development series.
Yeah.
But I think, back when Sam Schmidt had his, success in that series, I think one of the things that you got to give Sam a lot of credit for is he created a lot of opportunities for crew guys to come up through the ladder.
I'm glad you brought Sam Schmidt up because, it was, Sam had his own team, as you just said, very successful. But let's start back far on that. Somebody that was an IndyCar driver, a winner in IndyCar series.
Good one, yeah.
And got in a crash and unfortunately went through being a quadriplegic. And, we both lived in Vegas. We were both family friends. We flew to Orlando together when that happened. And what he's been able to do, Mark, I mean, just think about what he's been able to do as far as being, being a quadriplegic, fight through that, being a team owner in Indy Next, or Indy Lights back, as you said, being champion, getting IndyCar team going, being winners in that. Just what he's been able to do is just breathtaking. I respect him so much, right, as not only a friend, but as a guy that is able to get it done and doesn't let anything get him down. If you think you have it tough, you just look and read about Sam Schmidt, what he's been able to do, and with look at our Stingray Rob on the outside, just rolling around, guys. So hats off to Sam. And I miss seeing him with the rat. We do see him. He's still part of the Arrow McLaren, but not directly. He says he told me a while back. I go, so what's the deal? It's not Schmidt Peterson anymore. He goes, I'm just the S. I don't have much to do, But trust me. I mean, he's a guy that everybody has to look up to. Just proud of him. What he's been able to do to give, as you said, give so many guys the opportunity to drive racing cars and win races and championships. And I mean, there's a lot of them out there in these cars right today that would say the same thing, that the opportunity wouldn't be here for Sam Schmidt.
Teams are able to practice those hot stops, and we see some taking advantage of that. Speaking of pit lane, let's go down and check in with Jay Query.
Yeah, I actually thought perhaps we'd see Connor Daly doing exactly that. He has brought in that number 78 Hunko's Hollinger racing car, which is a really cool-looking race car, by the way, of course. Black with that green accentuation on it. But when he came in, the first thing they did was just start looking over the tires to check in terms of any marbles that might have accumulated, but it looks very clean. Keep in mind, they've got to be very pleased with that car. You talked about it earlier, but in terms of what so far he has been able to do in that car, talking about Connor Daly running 6th right now on the speed chart. So Ricardo Juncos has to be pleased with that. He is in this particular pit stall. Looking over right now, Connor Daly, there is no sense of urgency in terms of getting him back out. They are very closely, though, looking at the tire on the front right side of that machine for Connor Daly. We'll try to get a word with Ricardo here coming up before the end of this session, but this is a pretty promising marriage, at least thus far. Will it go beyond this race? We shall see, but Connor Daly sits right now very patiently. Others that have come along pit road, no actual pit stop simulations just yet. We might see that here towards the conclusion of this session.
Thanks, Jake. 28 minutes remaining in this session before it wraps up, and then they start the preparation for the race tomorrow night. Pato Award has now gone to P1. Speed's picking up at 174.708. Marcus Ericsson second fast at 174.191. Joseph Newgarden 173.685. David Lucas, Will Power complete the top 5. Back to Jake.
Ricardo Juncos is talking with Connor Daly. Let's begin with this. This is impressive, just in terms of the overall speed you guys have found. He sits 6th quickest. What are the challenges of this track that really have allowed your team to be able to get into that top 10 speed? What things did you have to measure through with this track?
Yeah, I think even last year we were okay here, but it was a big difference with the hybrid system when we come in and practice. And it's looking good, to be honest. I'm working with Connor, which is being almost 2 years without racing very much other than the Indy 500. So very impressive what he's doing. You can see we are good. We just fine tuning and try to understand the new balance. But so far it's been good. I mean, I'm really happy.
You will theoretically have an open seat now with Agustin Canapita going back to Argentina. How much is Connor Daly going to get a look at that? And when do you begin the process of really looking towards filling that seat for next year?
Yes, I think it's what it is, right? So we got to make this change. I think was the best way for everybody involved. It's not ideal because we don't want to do these changes, to be honest. But we have to do it, and there is many little reasons for it. I think looking for us is Connor can bring a lot on the experience on the ovals. We have 4 ovals on the next 5 races. So far he's been doing great, to be honest. So a lot of good information, good feedback. So I think we, considering that he's almost 2 years without driving, is very good looking forward.
Last thing, and I'll let you get back to work. I pointed this out to you at the time. Last time we were on an oval in Iowa, it was chasing it the entire weekend for your team. Romain Grosjean had a situation with his car where you guys went back, worked tirelessly, came back, got the laps in you needed. To me, it was an incredible display of just perseverance and chasing through it. How do you find the people for a team that have that kind of a drive?
I think it's just this family environment or whatever. I think everybody drives to each other. When you have a lot of passion, for something, and everybody feel the same way, and you push everybody in the same direction, you can fly very high. Look, we crashed both cars on Saturday. Without sleeping the whole night, we put 2 cars together, and after the race, Roman said that the car was good enough to win. So imagine for all the team members to hear that from him. So I think it's a good spirit, and that's motivation, right? When you have someone like him, with all the experience he has, many times this year saying, guys, the car is good enough to win, so we're going in the right direction. That's a huge motivation for everybody.
Is there some thought that Roman then will be with you again next year?
We don't know that yet. It's too soon. I hope so. We're going to still working on it. We don't know for the moment.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Ricardo Juncos, who looks over the car of Connor Daly, and again, right now looking up at the speed chart, and that number 78 shining very brightly just behind here as the scoring pylon is just behind the pit of Connor Daly, and you look up and there's that 78 brightly 6th position right now. So a good session here for that team. As Connor Daly had mentioned, he was familiar with them, hadn't worked with them a lot, didn't know exactly what to expect, but so far so good for that car.
2 things. I think Romain Grosjean's second half of the season makes him a strong candidate to return to Ricardo Juncos' operation. But another element to Connor Daly, I mean, let's face it, with all of the teams that he has driven for, I think for a team like Juncos, he can take all of the experiences that he's had from all of those race teams, and boy, I'll tell you what, I would imagine the feedback that he's able to give a race team about a car is very, very valuable to Ricardo's operation.
And especially at the ovals. But then now you got, as you said, Grosjean. He's a Formula 1 guy. I mean, he's really good on the street and road courses, actually doing good on the ovals as well. But so you have that side of it with him giving experience, and you got Connor giving experience on the ovals. That could be a good package. We'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do. But obviously, I think it's something that they're looking into.
Again, we talked about it earlier, Davey, and I don't want to take anything away from the relevance of being a champion at Indy Next or being a champion at every level. But, success in those ladder series for a myriad of reasons doesn't always transfer into a lot of success at the next level in the NTT IndyCar series. And as we mentioned, we've got a lot of drivers in the series right now that came up through the feeder system, if you will, and they were not series champions.
That's right.
And then we've had others, like a Spencer Pigot, who won at absolutely every level. And for whatever the reason, Connor Daly was another one. You remember when Connor first was coming up through that ladder? I mean, he was the dude. He really was.
That's right. He was making it happen.
A ton of races,
That's right, exactly.
And there's just no set formula for success at this level, but there's no question that those levels offer a lot of importance and experience to these drivers.
That's right. And did Colton Herta win Indy Next Championship? I know that Pato did, but I'm not sure Colton did. And look at how good Colton is here. Yeah, so I'd have to look back at that. But But anyways, yeah, Jake, you know more about that. Where did he end up?
Well, they were bitter rivals, Colton Herta and Pata Award, because of the fact that they were so neck and neck. But if you recall in that season, Colton Herta in Toronto suffered a wrist injury that really kind of at that point derailed his chase of Pata Award. So it was Award that ended up winning that season, that year. But both of them were right there. It was very clear, Davey, that both of them were absolutely on the fast track towards the IndyCar series.
Yeah, but in that, when it goes to prove what Mark is just, kind of stepping on there, is you don't have to be a champion over there to be good over here. And that's a prime example. And I see Colton Herta looks to me like he broke a drive shaft pulling out of the pits the last time by. He made one lap, actually fairly good lap too, and right back in. But when I seen him go out of the pits, I noticed only one tire was smoking. So that tells me that when he left, a half shaft broken. So you guys may be able to get a better idea of that. But I think he's done for the night.
So Award continues P1, 174.708. Marcus Ericsson second fastest. Newgarden, Malukas, and Power the top five. Stingray Robb continues to put together a productive session in that 41 car. He is sixth fastest at 172.781. Daly, seventh fastest, 172.674. Kyle Kirkwood, eighth quick, 172.645. Nolan Siegel at 172.586. Completing the top 10, Marcus Armstrong at 172.530. Rossi, Dixon, Palou, Rosenquist, and Herta through 15th, and Lundgaard, VK, Grosjean, Lundquist, Simpson through 20th. Ferrucci, Harvey, McLaughlin, Rahal, and Carpenter through 25th. Catherine Legg and Fittipaldi right now 26th and 25th. Speeds ranging, Davey, from a fast of 174.708 for Award to Fittipaldi at 168.139.
Yeah, how about Catherine Legg? Find a little bit of speed. She was at the bottom of that chart, passing Fittipaldi. Find a little bit more speed there, which is good. Ed Carpenter looked good both today. Seems he's fallen down in this final warm-up. Same with the VK. Had a pretty good qualifying run. Finds himself 18th right now. But, a little larger gap than we'd like to see between the first fastest and the slowest right now, but which is not that much. But at the end of the day, that's a little too much. We'll see lapping within probably 20 laps of this race.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to ask you that. I'm thinking, between 20 and 30 laps, we should start to see some traffic come into play.
Yeah, that's right. So you look at the seconds, and I'll look here at the timing of it, so the speed of it. Yeah, it is pretty close on times, 1 second. So, basically, in about 20 to 25 laps, those leaders will be getting caught up to lap traffic. And it could be quicker than that, because at the start of the race, everybody's bunched up. So there's less track time to make up.
And I will say that if memory serves me correctly, what unfolds here is at the start. We see a lot of drivers jockeying for position. That's when people typically will jump out and take that high line and try to gain a couple of positions. And then don't be surprised that things they hopefully get settled out quickly. And we do, quite frankly, have some single file racing. Now, if we get cautions, that creates an opportunity again for things to get bunched up. But it always seems to me like over the last 40 laps or so, 50 laps of this race, that's when things, after that last pit stop, things get really interesting. That's when drivers are forced to issue a bit.
That's right. That's where it really has to happen right now. And, in the day, you want to be fast in this final warm-up. Now, those that are not fast in this final warm-up, matter of fact, if Colton Herta is done, which I think he may be, he's 15th on the speed chart. That's not where he wants to be. You look at Ferrucci. Foyt told us they continue to struggle around. They're in that 22nd spot, so they got a lot of work to do to get the cars fast. But then you look at their teammates. One of them, Ericsson, is Colton Herta, is obviously in P2 right now, so the information's there. Then you got Stingray Robb, P6 right now, to try to help Ferrucci get that car right. So they do. That's what they'll do after this session. Go look at the data, see where they're missing, what's happening, and why they're not fast.
But is it possible for someone to feel good and be in 15th or 16th, Davey? Is it possible for them to be happy with this, knowing that the car's going to race well?
Yeah, well, no, that's another key thing. Even though they're down the charts, if they're out there and they're gaining on guys, are able to pass, the car's really stuck down, dirty air's not affecting them, you're right. That is a good place to be, for sure.
Jake Query has an update on Colton Herta as we go yellow for a track inspection. Jake, so
and there was a yellow that came out, of course, during qualifying when Colton Herta actually didn't come out. Colton Herta made contact aspect of the rear of his car, finished his qualifying run. Then the caution came out because they had to go over the track and make sure there was nothing left out by that number 26 Cambridge machine. But just came down and talked to Rob Edwards, who said it was not a drive shaft issue with Colton Herta. He simply stalled in terms of the clutch when he left from coming in here into the pits, and so they decided to go ahead and take a once-over. The thing that they are really looking at, and keep in mind, they had to repair the rear of the race car, so they are really working hard on the spring adjustments for it. One of the themes that we have heard throughout the practice and qualifying from nearly every driver is the fact that the balance is just really difficult at this track because turns 1 and 2 require a completely different feel, if you will, than turns 3 and 4 of this track. So balance has been a challenge. They went ahead and made adjustments on both the front and rear springs of that number 26 Cambridge machine, and it looks like Colton Herta, once we are back to the clearance to do so, will be taking his car back out onto the racetrack. But when he was pulling away, simply stalled it on the clutch. They went ahead and pushed him back, took advantage of the opportunity there to go ahead and make some adjustments to the balance of that car.
Yeah, there you go. Good news there. Not something broken, because after an accident like that, you never know. And that may even been, to be honest with you, that could have been something from last year, because I do think he broke a half shaft in the race last year. So could have been some old footage that they showed up on our screen for us. Right now, we see the safety trucks going around, just making sure all the debris is picked up. Clock still ticking away, Mark. 16 and a half minutes left in this final session. And you know, right now, with everybody in the pits, we're going to kind of make some final changes on these cars, maybe put some, better set of tires on to see what they have to try to lay down a good lap.
Well, give us, if you will, some insight and let folks know. A lot of folks filing in, continue to file in. They're ready for the nightcap here tonight, Davey.
Yep.
It's going to be a good show here at Worldwide Technology Raceway.
That's right. Silver Crown cars back again. I mean, it's great seeing those cars on this huge racetrack for them, mile and a quarter, 183 miles an hour going down in turn 1. Pretty quick when you're in a two-rail car with a motor in front of you sitting in like a high chair going down there. So obviously Cody Swanson, he's been the master of Silver Crown cars for years now. Won 7 championships, leading in points again this year. He is the guy to beat, race in, race out, no question about it. Finds himself on the pole. I think potentially a track record. I'm not sure if he broke one or not, but there's a somewhat of a small field, 16 cars here, but I tell you, there's probably 10 of the drivers that can pull it off. Now, Cody does have a stretch out on everybody, but last year, I was fortunate to see my son win the thing last year and being able to beat Cody. Ran second the year before. Unfortunately, he hasn't had any practice, and we had some car problems, but that doesn't matter. It's going to be a great race. There's a lot of good Silver Crowns, fun to watch. It's fun to drive them. Actually, was going to drive. I got a car here for myself, but I had a few little eye issue go on that I was not able to do it, and so I've been 2 years trying to run this race, and I guess God doesn't want me to do it.
Well, I can tell you that in my experience, my days once upon a time doing the feature races at the Terre Haute Action Track, there's nothing like the feeling of those cars at speed when they come down the straightaway.
Yeah, so great. In the history, Johnny Rutherford, Al Unser, both the Unsers, and AJ Foyts and Mario Andretti's and all the people have been able to win in Silver Crown Series, and that was kind of the stepping stone into INDYCAR back in those days, and they still, and by the way, just let me tell you what kind of schedule they have. There's 9 races. I mean, in 9 days they're doing 3 races.
Jay Query.
Marcus Ericsson has hopped out of his car. That tells me one of two things. Either number one, you're paid hourly and we're up against it, or number two, you were pretty happy with that car that sits second on the speed chart. I'm opting for number 2.
Yeah, I think it's number 2 on that one. No, it's been a good day for us on the 28 Delaware Live car. Qualifying, I think we left a little bit there, but still, I think if my maths are correct, we're going to line up 7th tomorrow, which is a good place to start from. And then, this practice now, focusing on race running, was really, really good. We were really happy with the car. So now when, the sun sets and the temperature drops, it's sort of past race end time for tomorrow. So we don't really see a reason to pound around when we're happy with where we are. So just going to polish the car and get ready for tomorrow.
How many different cars have you had today? And by that, I mean, when you roll off and then the adjustments you're making, are you really kind of always chasing it?
Yeah, I mean, you are to some extent, but I think for us, what we had really good is that we had the test here a few weeks ago, the Andretti team, and we had a really good productive test day that we could sort of roll off strong in practice 1 this morning, and we've just been building from there on. So that's been positive for us, and hopefully should put us in a good spot for the race.
Appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you.
That's Marcus Ericsson. He's going to go clock out now because there's about 15 minutes left in this session. But as he mentioned, good point too, and the fact that tomorrow, unless there is some sort of an unprecedented lengthy delay, I shouldn't say unprecedented, but weather-wise not expected at all. So the conditions right now in terms of that sun that is now dipped behind the main straightaway speedway here and the lights that are illuminating it, the temperatures as such. But we will see tomorrow that the race will be completed before this time of day. So maybe not a lot yet to be gained, especially for that car that sits second on the speed charts. So far, so good in terms of this session for them. Might as well go ahead and preserve it, bring it back out tomorrow for the race.
I think that last point Jake makes is the most important one. I think that, the reason why, Davey, the decision becomes easier to park it with 12 and a half minutes to go is because you are P2 in the session.
That's right, yeah. And when you're fast, the car feels good, going, okay, do we keep pounding around her? Like, all our changes are done. We've done it all. The car feels really good. Let's put it away. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting the different approaches that the drivers take, and a lot of those approaches are predicated based upon how happy they are with the race cars. Some of the drivers that are probably happiest include, as we mentioned, Pato Award at 174.708, then Ericsson, then Newgarden, then Malukas, then Will Power, the top five. Stingray Robb, been an interesting session for him, Davey. He's been rolling around in the top 10 for most of this session. Daly, 7th quick, Kyle Kirkwood, 8th, Nolan Siegel, 9th fastest, and then Marcus Armstrong 10th fastest. Alexander Rossi 11th quick, Scott Dixon 12th quick, below 13th, Rosenquist 14th, Herta 15th. Linus Lundqvist is 16th fastest, then McLaughlin, then Lundgaard, then VK, Grosjean, Simpson, Ferrucci, Harvey, Rahal, and Carpenter, Legg, and Fittipaldi. I think, as we mentioned, a very important session, this one, Davey, because it's the only one really that was devoted fully to race trim. Typically, you have a couple of practice sessions before you go qualifying. You can decide, to use one for race trim and one for qualifying trim, but no such luck for these teams today. They had that 1 hour session earlier today, and then they were told to go qualify.
Told to go qualify. That's all they get. That's right, Mark. And that's, when you're prepared and you're professional, that's what you're supposed to do. I know a lot of them would have liked some additional time, but hey, it is what it is. It's safe for everybody. And right now, you look at the times, it's all pretty good. I think they're going to put a really good race on tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. And it appears as though that some success was gleaned by doing that highlight practice, that 30-minute session where they split the teams into two groups. And we're waiting patiently now for the safety vehicles to return to their assigned spots. And hopefully, Jake Query, very, very soon, we'll see the green flag fly with 10 minutes remaining in this session.
And to put a tie on a topic that we talked about earlier, at least for this session, what we know, and that is the situation with Nolan Siegel. If you're just joining us, Nolan Siegel earlier in this practice session came along pit road with a front right tire that essentially was completely removed from the wheel. There was just a small part of it that was still holding the tire intact. But just talking to Kara Kostalik from Firestone, and she said in looking at it that they determined it was cut somehow, and they think it may have been cut earlier in the session and that he was riding on it for a time, and then obviously just the overall pressure on the tire itself. Eventually that attrition got to such where the cut that took place then made it, of course, obvious as to what was going on. That's when he came in, when it pronounced itself as being damaged. They have yet to determine what it was that might have cut the tire, but they do believe that it happened a little bit before the actual incident when he came along pit road. They will further examine it, but that's the word for now, at least probably for the rest of the evening from Firestone.
Well, Davey, as we look at this championship chase, and we know that we've got some guys trying to secure that championship who have been in this position before, and we got one driver that's chasing his first ever championship at Pato Award.
Yeah.
I think among those front four, really, quite frankly, of course, anything can happen. All it takes is one bad race at this point. But who do you think among those four? I mean, I guess if you're below, it's better to be the hunted, I think.
Yeah,
than the hunted.
if you're going to pick a spot, try to be in close. I mean, he's done it 2 different times. He knows how to go about it. They seem to be really consistent in this year. But as you said, just one thing, you look at Scott Dixon, where he would be right now if he didn't break down on the first lap at Mid-Ohio, and he would be right in the game. So you can never count Scott Dixon. He's won more of these than anybody else. But right now, I have to say that Ganassi team's looking really, really strong. But Will Power's hungry as well. I mean, he wants into another championship. You know that he wants to, stay with that Penske team as long as possible, and a championship would definitely help that. So he's not going to give up either. But right now, I think Palou is the guy to chase.
This race at times, I think, has played a huge role in changing the trajectory of a championship. And I remember a few years ago when Simon Pagenaud and Joseph Newgarden were involved in a pretty tight chase for the championship, and Joseph made a move on Simon down in turn 1 that until to this day, I don't think Simon believed that he would ever attempt, and he did it, pulled it off. He won the race and went on to win the championship.
But yeah, they touched. I mean, there was smoke and there was some, was happening, but he pulled it off and definitely went on to win the championship. And those are the kind of moves you need to do at the end. And a lot of times that was Simon making those moves. This time it was on Simon. So you never know. I mean, everybody's hungry out there in the season. A lot of these drivers are fighting for rides or fighting for a ride. They want to show the good performance and how good that they really are. And so pretty interesting to, what comes up, especially with only 4 events left, actually 5 races, but 4 events.
I don't think I have ever seen anyone as disgusted on a podium as Simon Pagenaud was here that night.
Pretty dejected.
He was upset.
He was
it's like
upset.
The reality set in, and he thought, if you talk about drivers, and of course he's had his share of issues this year, Joseph Newgarden, I mean, conventional wisdom would tell you, Jake, he'd be in a championship chase with all of these ovals left to go. Be that as it may, that's not the case, but he still has the success of an Indy 500 to reflect upon after this season's over.
Pretty big one for sure, and he'd like to add another oval this weekend. Joseph Newgarden, after qualifying, he seemed pretty happy with that PPG car. I'm assuming nothing took place in that practice session to take away that enthusiasm.
Yeah, the car is really, really, really good. I'm super happy with it. I was happy with it in qualifying. The team did a great job. We were so close there, that top 4 or 5 in qualifying, and I think in the race here, you might have some raceability. It looked like we did in the beginning of the session. It's just that second lane, it goes away so quick when we don't have the circulation. I wish you could keep the second lane alive longer in the race, but I think you'll have it there in restarts and starts. I'm excited. I think our car is raceable and we can do something with it. We'll see what the show's like.
How tricky is a lap here? I mean, are you constantly having to chase and change the car from 1 to 4?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy tonight. I don't think we're going to get this tomorrow because we start earlier, but it was rapidly cooling and the car was changing aggressively at the end there. I didn't want to keep pounding around and chasing the thing, and then that's kind of how we felt as a group. But even with stable conditions, you're chasing the car throughout the tire stint. 1 and 2 are 1, 2, and 3 and 4, they're very different ends of the track. You need to keep setting your tools like twice a lap. So you're busy around this track. I think when you want to be fast, you have to be busy.
Appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep, sounds good.
That's Joseph Newgarden, Mark.
Yeah, a rare DNF for him kept him from winning, I think, 4 in a row here, Davey, as I recall. And I just think that there's a level of confidence there that we heard in that interview with Jake Query. I mean, 4th fastest in this practice session. And, the bottom line is I think that the separation that comes in a Newgarden and a Dixon and a Palou, I can't think of the last time, or it doesn't happen very often, where you look at a move they make and think, boy, they probably should have rethought that.
Rethought that one,
and I think that's what separates them from a lot of other drivers.
Yeah, we watch right now, Connor Day, they went down to try to give some room to Pato Award. Didn't need to. Pato lifted, but Connor did probably not knew too late. Got up back to say he was only not even completing the second groove. Already so many marbles there. Slid up, smashed the right sides against that wall. He's able to drive it in, but definitely made hard contact with that outside wall off turn 2. And that tells you he wasn't even in. He was like a groove and a half up and hit those marbles, and that's all she wrote.
Got to give him a lot of credit, Davey, because he minimized the damage to that race car. That was pretty impressive save by Connor Daly.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, they're done. Something's been the right rear, so he's out. If the sad thing, if that would have been the race, he's done. But there's something broken in the right rear of that car, so Connor's done for the night. Like I say, they'll get that car fixed. He's still 6th overall on the grid or in the timing chart. But let me tell you, he learned a lot from that. He will not do that tomorrow. He'll know now that, hey, marbles, what happens are built up. Nobody wants to go in the second group now. There's already marbles there. I went up there, and all that did was generated me hitting the wall. So when it comes race time tomorrow, obviously he's not going to do that again.
So we're watching his crew. They did take the opportunity to work on the pit stops under condition when Connor brought that car in, and that is an important element. So from a strategic standpoint, Davey, in terms of your race planning, is there an opportunity for any race teams to do any of that planning and just race strategy in advance of even arriving at the racetrack, or will all of that strategic planning come either tonight or throughout the day tomorrow?
Well, one thing those engineers do, they look at the previous races here. They know how many yellows. They know what strategies the winner did and what strategy most of these teams did to be successful. They know all that, so they have their eye on that ball. They know kind of idea to coming in here. But then it's all kind of different if they go practice, the car's not good, it's whatever it may be. That may change. Just for example, Colton, good car starting in the back, all of a sudden that race strategy probably going to change from when they came here. And I guess Connor Daly went back out. I seen one of the crew guys going, no, it's broken the right rear, but obviously he must have looked at it and maybe just had some dust or not bent enough to affect anything, so off he goes.
Jake Query.
And I think what they're doing here is simply they had him go out so that they can do a simulated couple of hot pit stops. I think that was the real challenge here, because I don't think they were looking for necessarily speed, because he pulled out, but he has yet to complete a complete lap, and they've already set up for a practice qualifying. So I'm assuming, a practice pit stop. So I think that's what it was.
That's what he did. Something bent back there. We've seen that crew member show that, and something bent, so can't go up to speed. But yes, if they feel they can go around there slow, just stay on the warm-up lane, come in, do a few hot pit stop practices, that helps him out for tomorrow as well.
And again, it's important for Connor to get as many reps with those pit stops as he can. I mean, I know he's a veteran, but it's still important for him to get an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, when you don't do it week in, week out, it's very, very difficult. You watch a couple cars just miss each other. Wow, that was Lundgaard and Lundqvist to just miss each other coming, one going out and one coming in the pits. Wow, yeah, very good job on Lundgaard's side by being very, very patient, I should say, or attentive to what was going on. We see another one side by side going out with one of the, who is that? That must be Malukas, I think, going out right there side by side with another car. They're doing some hot stops right now and getting awful close with 1 minute left.
Feel the most pressure as a driver or when you were a race strategist?
Oh,
or is it different?
Yeah, it's totally different, because as a driver, there's that pressure of, success. You want to win. There's so much to it. You do that as a race strategist too, but it's a different level. You got to do your job. You got to make sure you do your job, and the driver's on a completely different level. As a strategist, you got to make sure you try to do the right strategy, that you're not leaving them out too long, that you do what you need to do, work with the engineers. So you want to win in both of them, but I think they're much more on my side. I started as a driver, much more satisfying, gratifying as a driver.
When there's a stalemate, who decides who wins?
That's a very good question, because I've had engineers for both sides on that. So sometimes I say, well, if you think that's the right way to go, why don't you drive it and give it a shot? What I mean? Because I'm trying to tell you.
Right.
But then there's been other side where, they rule, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. You got to be very open. And the key thing is, when I say this, I had some of the best guys, and we're still great friends. It wasn't like a battle, or wasn't like an argument. It was like, I remember one track we went to and said, hey, I feel like we could be so much better if we did A, B, and C. We did that, and I told you, we qualified really good, but in the race I didn't do very good. And then when the race got over, he goes, hey, do you mind if I put my setup back on it now, because we were way better in the race and your qualifying setup. So we both had our ideas of what worked, and they both worked, but it's more important to be good in the race than it is qualifying.
Well, and somebody's got to be where the buck stops, and I get that, but I think the truly successful organizations, their philosophy is, and it doesn't matter what the organization is, it's all about what's right, not who's right.
That's right. What's right, not who's right. Well, for example, let's put this into play. Colton Herta dominating one of the races, and then he said, I got to pit. He's up front. I think it was Iowa. I got to pit, the first race at Iowa. And they go, okay, we'll go ahead and pit. Well, if they would have kept him out and to stay on fuel strategy, he wouldn't have been hung out, because the yellow came out just as he came in. So, you try to work with your driver. It's not like say who's right, it's what's right, and sometimes you just miss it.
Good luck to DJ the Silver Crown race tonight.
We're going to give it a shot and see, just try to recoup, going to start way back, but I feel like he's going to come forward, and it's going to be a good one to watch.
Award, Erickson, Herta, Newgarden, Kirkwood, the top five. Your top qualifier setting the pole, on the pole for tomorrow will be Scott McLaughlin. Don't forget, Indy next race, points leader Louis Foster going to lead the field to the green flag. Join us at 2:50 Central Time, at 3:50 Eastern, and then at 5 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Eastern, flag-to-flag coverage of the Barbarino Automotive Group 500. Great job by our crew all all day today. It has been a long one. Sam Rumson back in our Indianapolis studios, our on-site engineer and on-site producer Rick Evans, our network director Chris Pollock, Michael Young, Jake Query. Long day for them on pit road. Great job, great insight from them. For Nick Yeoman, Davey Hamilton, I'm Mark James. So long for now from Worldwide Technology Raceway.